And by the way, everyone watching, the best thing you can do for this right now, just hit like while we're live. And if you're watching the archive, just comment. Comment on the video. That helps us cut through the YouTube algorithms. I don't know if this will still be up because it could be considered against YouTube's guidelines. So we wanted to have someone authoritative. I know it's not AP, but we actually have here with us for an exclusive the Attorney General of Texas, Mr. Ken Paxton. How are you, sir? Thank you for being here.
Hey, I'm doing great. It's been kind of a slow morning for me, but pretty good.
Yeah, you're moseying. You're doing it at a Texas pace. By the way, do you prefer attorney, Mr. Paxton, attorney, or just general?
Just call me Ken.
Well, come on now. I appreciate it.
So, it sounds weird. The title is General Paxton. That's what the title is.
The title is General Paxton. Now, to be clear, because a lot of people will say, oh, hold on a second, we need authoritative sources. You're a real attorney general, right? Not a patsy for the higher-ups.
That's true. I'm a real attorney general elected by the people of Texas. So,
okay, good. I want to make sure. So YouTube, please don't remove him yet. Really quickly, because I know you're busy. You're about to walk over to the Oval Office right after this spot, and I appreciate you making the time. Treat me like many people in our audience, because I'm sure you know this has gotten convoluted with different suits. Some are brought by the Trump team, some are brought by other lawyers, and some have been brought now, in this case, by an AG like yourself. What is the suit from Texas? Who are you guys suing? And just in a summary, what is the basis of the suit?
Okay, the first thing I have to say is my daughter is having a baby today, and my son-in-law said, I love this guy. Can you get me one of those mugs autographed by him? And I said, I'll do my best.
Well, I tell you what, I can't because we're rough on budget, and I don't know him. But I will. Okay, well, listen, I can't. Love's a strong word. No, I will get him. Not only will I get him a mug, I'll get him a whole gift package. We have some new hoodies, and I really appreciate that. And we'll talk after you deal with some more important pressing matters. But recap for people who don't know this suit that you have brought against the state of Michigan, Georgia, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania. Tell them what it is, what the basis is.
So we simply are saying that these states ignored the Constitution. They ignored their own state laws, and throughout these states, local elected officials and judges changed the law and made their elections not follow state law, which under the Constitution, they're not supposed to do. Those elections are governed by state law, by state legislators, and when they start mucking around with state law, individual counties having different election laws than other counties, it creates credibility problems, and it's unconstitutional, and it affects my voters because we did it the right way. We fought off all these lawsuits. We followed state law, and our elections are credible, and theirs are not. And that disenfranchises my voters and the voters of the rest of the country. Absolutely.
And not only that, but Texas was one of the states that rejected using Dominion software, correct? Mm-hmm. And what
we've rejected it 3 times, and we had 12 lawsuits in federal court, state court, all over the state of Texas, Fifth Circuit, Texas Supreme Court, challenging our laws on mail-in ballots, challenging our laws on signature verification. We were successful in every single one of them, 12 lawsuits, and had we not, we would have been in the same situation as Georgia and Michigan and Wisconsin and Pennsylvania.
Right. You rejected it 3 times. So like a voter fraud rejection hat trick, which, by the way, I apologize. My half-Asian lawyer is here. He's breathing like a bulldog. Let's turn down his mic for a little bit. He's so interested. He's going... Now, I want to go back to the constitutionality here in a second. But before that, there have been a lot of rumors circulating, and unfortunately some disinformation has taken place on the right as well as the left. Now, 17 states have joined in as friends of the court, right? Amici is the term. But that doesn't mean that they've officially signed on. And you said that this morning you can announce right here, right now, which states thus far have officially signed on to this suit with you in Texas.
So we have actually now 18 states. Arizona is now part of that amicus process.
Okay.
The other states that we are talking to about intervening have not actually filed, so I cannot say who they are, but there are several states that are likely to intervene in our case sometime today.
Sometime today. Okay. You can't give us a hint? Like, I don't know, they might have something to do with eyes that are bucked.
Well, because you never know what's going to happen until they file. So until they file, they're not in. So I know the president tried to intervene. So this is a big deal. I mean, this is a big case.
Right. And I had heard, listen, not from you, I want to be clear about that, but from some inside sources, they expect a minimum of 4 and a possibility of 10. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, that sounds about right. Like I said, it could happen or not happen. I'm not in control of other states' decisions about whether to intervene. I am only in control of what Texas did. We obviously filed a lawsuit.
Right. But these 17 other states, or 18, sorry, that have joined in. So what does that mean for people who don't understand? Because some people think that means that they've officially joined in on the suit. And Donald Trump has, by the way, the president. He's talked about intervening. But what does it mean when they're just friends of the court? We're talking about that amicus.
So intervening, you're actually a party. You're standing alongside of us saying, hey, this was a wrong done to our citizens in our state. And amicus is a friend of the court brief providing guidance to the court on issues that those states think are will be relevant to the court. And my understanding is that amicus will be favorable to us, obviously, but it's not like intervening. Intervening is like, I'm part of this fight. I'm getting in, totally getting in. Whereas amicus, I mean, very helpful, and we do a lot of amicus briefs ourselves because sometimes we can't intervene, or it's not strategic to intervene. It's not quite the same, but it's certainly useful.
Well, yeah, and I understand, but how could it not be strategic for them to intervene? I guess what should be the tipping point for someone who's saying, well, I support it, I'm a friend of the court, versus, really having skin in the game? Because a lot of Americans out there feel like, they've been gaslit, they're taking crazy pills. You obviously have the brass pair to step up. Americans want to see other states officially, sign on that dotted line, hey, we hear you.
No, I'm with you. I'd love to have them. I'd take, all 18 states intervening if they wanted to go with us. We want them in. We'll take them. We're encouraging them to join us and to stand on the front lines with us. And when we're in front of the U.S. Supreme Court, be there present, be a party, and be part of the fight.
Right. And we'll know by the end of the day, that's probably a big part of your conversation, who is joining in officially. I wish you could tell me at least even like 1 or 2, I mean, please, can you also just, have some kind of complaint? Can you put it in there? I know, like with a bill and an earmark, something with John Kasich, just say like, and by the way, he pisses the rest of the country off. Can there be a legal filing?
I don't know if he's going to be a part of this one.
Okay.
Maybe tomorrow. Maybe we'll file that one tomorrow.
Well, just double dog dare him to lick a pole in the middle of December, and that would be good enough for me. Let me ask you, recently filed brief, you called this lawsuit a mockery of federalism and separation of powers, right? This is the arguments that they're using, and they've suggested that it's not under the Supreme Court's constitutional purview to serve as a trial court for the presidential election dispute. So, seeing what we've seen before, where a lot of these suits have just been tossed, right? And that's been parroted by the media where they say, 40 of Donald Trump's suits have been tossed. We know those aren't necessarily Donald Trump suits. These are suits brought on by many different people. Why do you think this, or why is this suit? Why should Americans understand that this is different, that as Donald Trump has said, the president, this is the big one?
So this is different because it's being brought by states. So we have no other recourse other than to go to the U.S. Supreme Court. All these other cases, at least, whether they were tossed or not, at least you can say they had a chance to be heard somewhere. We have nowhere else to go. I feel like we've had a harm to my citizens, that their vote, they've been disenfranchised by these other states in a federal national election. And so if the court doesn't grant us the ability to make the argument, we have nowhere to go, and we're just being told, not only you're being tossed, but you don't even get to make the argument. You don't even get to be heard.
Right, and that's the difference because, I was watching CNN, SCOTUS was trending, on social media, and I thought, this must be because of General Paxton's suit. And instead it was about the Supreme Court, kicking it back down to the lower Pennsylvania court, that other case that happened on the same day. And I think people don't understand that, listen, that's something that's happening within a state. It kind of came down to a deadline issue, but that's very different compared to a suit between states. Necessarily, the Supreme Court has to intervene because you can't just say, well, let the Supreme Court of Texas or Pennsylvania figure it out. That's a very stark contrast that I think hasn't been really nailed into Americans' heads yet. I don't think they fully grasp the consequences.
No, it's so important because I think there are some who think that the Supreme Court has to hear our case. I mean, there are some on the court who I think believe that when the Constitution was written, that states had nowhere to go because if they can't be heard, their only other opportunity was to go fight each other, right? That's why they have to have a place. If you don't want a war, or some other type of action, you have to have a place to go redress your harm. So there are some of the court who believe that they are required to hear that. Unfortunately, the majority opinion on this has been it's up to them. They can decide for whatever reason, yes or no. They don't have to even have a reason. They can just say no. And unfortunately, that is the current, I think, majority opinion. I'm just hoping in this case they'll see it as important enough to hear it.
I guess, we've seen these voter rolls as it relates to these issues, voter irregularities. Sorry, on YouTube we can't say voter fraud, but irregularities. People have brought forward videotape, hundreds of affidavits, and so many cases have just been tossed, right? Tossed. What does it take? I mean, the evidence hasn't even been examined in some of these other cases. How do you remain hopeful that at least what you're bringing forward and the evidence is seen? Because we've seen judges say, don't want to see it.
So, we reference some of the evidence that we have, but our case is fundamentally not even built on that, because I've watched what's happened, and, frankly, I'm disappointed that it hasn't gotten a more thorough review by our judiciary for whatever reason. Our case doesn't rest on how valid the fraud is or not. We are resting completely on the Constitution, that we know for a fact that these legislatures had passed laws that were not followed by local officials, and that there are equal protection issues about different voters being treated differently, that there are ballot fraud issues that were not addressed, like no signature verification. You've got drop boxes being dropped in Georgia that are just dropped off and people can throw their ballots in there. I mean, those are in violation of state law. That's a fact.
Right.
So we're not basing it on anything that we have to go prove as it relates to fraud. We're basing it on what we know happened as a fact, and we're asking the court to say, hey, look, this is wrong. It needs to be addressed.
And it negatively affects, members of other states. Listen, as someone who's sort of more of a libertarian conservative, right? We talk about federalism on this show. I understand states having the ability to govern themselves. But this is a question that I have, and maybe you might be able to help clarify, because I could be wrong. We do have a baseline minimum, of laws, meaning, okay, you can't kill, you can't steal. And we do have a baseline minimum, for example, nationally, what an adult is for enlistment. Now, states can change where you can drink, right? But why don't we have, it seems like we have a baseline nationally when elections need to take place, right? Election day. But how do we juxtapose this with the Constitution, where you have some states where you require a valid address and some state laws don't? It seems like there should be some kind of standardization just to set a baseline that we know legal American citizens are voting. And am I off base there?
Well, and the way that it was set up was that the states could determine some of these rules as it related to their election. So, for instance, I think Nevada legislature actually went back and changed their laws as it related because of COVID, and made it very easy to vote by mail. And so we do have states where the legislature set it up so it creates some of these issues that we're talking about. And that may be a national debate that we need to be having at the federal level, to say, hey, we need to fix this across the nation, because we can't trust these elections. If the legislature goes and changes these rules, it makes it really easy for people to have fraudulent ballots.
Right.
We are not going to be able to trust our elections. So I think you're bringing up a really good point that needs to be addressed nationally.
Yeah.
Very soon.
Well, I appreciate it, and I know you're busy. I have a couple more questions for you. Real quick, I will go to you, but 1 second. And the reason I bring that up is because we are doing a show next Thursday, right, where we are going to be driving across Nevada in an RV. So we have some brilliant researchers who work here, and we have between 30 or 40 or 50 addresses. We'll hit as many as we can, live streaming uncut for 4 to 6 hours. Addresses that we know don't exist or are invalid addresses. Empty lots. We will show people because they hear the numbers and they go, oh, okay, a few thousand here. But a lot of people don't believe it. The reason we had to do it in Nevada is because in Michigan, it's okay for someone to register at an empty lot. And that really struck us as odd. And it was something that actually narrowed down the states where we had to say, actually, it's not lawful for you to vote from a place that doesn't exist. But in some states it is. My half Asian lawyer here, Bill Richmond, did have a question for you. He's far smarter than I am, and I appreciate your time. Go ahead, Mr. Kraken.
General Paxton, one of the interesting things I thought stood out from the filing you made with the Supreme Court was the phrase "an unconstitutional relaxation of ballot integrity protections." And to me, that said it all, right? It's saying there are laws in place, there are rules in place, and the states are not following them. We all agree about what they did. Now it's just a matter of determining was it constitutional or unconstitutional. For our audience members across the country and in these states that are only amici or haven't even jumped in to file an amicus brief on this particular issue, why should they be interested in making sure that their voice is heard and that their attorney generals are actually joining in to combat the unconstitutional relaxation of ballot integrity protections?
That's a great question.
It was a little bit of a boring one, I'll be honest, but a little wonkish, but go ahead.
It was a little long. I'll say a little long. What was the question again?
Are you sure about those 5 minutes?
All right, here we go. Why should citizens want their AGs to join the fight?
Because I think that they are being disenfranchised. If your state followed state law and produced election results that were based on state law as required by the U.S. Constitution, and other states said, we're not going to follow those constitutional requirements, we're not going to follow our state law, and as a result, we don't really know, we can't verify whether any of these 2.5 million ballots and mail-in ballots in Pennsylvania are real. Well, that's a problem for my state because my state is following the law, and now we've got all these states, we don't know what the real result is, and it affects the outcome of an election, and that affects my state.
Yeah. It affects a federal election. You have states changing laws that ultimately affect a federal election. 3 quick questions for you before you go, and I know you're busy, and tell the president I say hi, though I don't think he'll care. If at 3 o'clock...
I bet he will.
He might be like, that guy, he wears pajamas. No. At 3 p.m., right, and we'll know today, people watching, the states that officially join in, but let's say the Supreme Court declines to hear your case. What are your next steps?
That we have nowhere to go. I mean, That's our only place to file our case. We don't have another filing place. We can't go to district court. That's why I am saying this really matters for the Supreme Court to give us a chance to at least present our side.
Right.
That's all we're asking.
And another question, is there anything that the American people, we have hundreds of thousands of people watching right now this second, there'll be millions of people. Is there anything they can do to help?
Yes, I think encourage your attorney general to intervene.
Okay.
Or participate in this process. It's our last chance, and it may be our last chance forever, because if this gets set this way, we may never have elections again that we can count on. This is setting the future of our country and how elections are going to be done.
Right. Here's my final question, and I don't mean for it to be a hardball question, but I will say this sort of feeling from a lot of Americans with Donald Trump in office and Republicans in control of a lot of areas of government. Not a lot has been done. I go, for example, it required liberals in New York to file suit on the grounds of 230 or monopolies with big tech. When do you think all Republicans are going to, or can we hope for other Republicans to grow a backbone like you seem to be, General Paxton? I'm just going to tell you, we're really disappointed. I'm glad to see you doing this, but we're really disappointed with the people we put in office.
Well, I understand that. I have my own disappointments. By the way, on that Facebook complaint, we're on that complaint.
Yes.
And you will see more from us on different issues coming very soon. So, no, I get it. I find it shocking that, there were so few people interested initially in being a part of this. I'm grateful that, this case has created enough interest that now we've got people focused on it. I think there's good reason to have some disappointment in what Republicans have done, and I'm hopeful that this will galvanize us to realize that we could lose our democracy in the way that the founders set it up, and that this really is like crunch time. It's a threshold issue of survival of our democracy.
Yeah, I agree with you, and there we hear it for American people to petition your AGs, tell them to grow a pair, and please let us know. I know you're busy and you have to go. We'll be looking for the official announcement here later today. If there's anything we can do, don't hesitate to reach out, and please be safe today and give him hell, Mr. Paxton.
Hey, I appreciate you having me on, and your reputation precedes you from my own family members. So thanks for having me on. They were excited to come on.
Well, sounds to me like you need better family members, but thank you, Mr. Paxton. I appreciate it. Give him hell. That was that was lovely to have him on so early.
I loved hearing that, because he made that same point that we've been talking about. You can't just break your own laws with elections and disenfranchise every other state. You just can't do it.
Watch Good Morning Mug Club live every Monday through Thursday at 10:15 Eastern.